right, joining me now to rip through the big headlines and big games this week in college football is our guy, former Michigan Wolverine and Denver Bronco, current analyst at the Big Ten Network, Jake Butt. Brad Powers will be with us in the second half of the program to rip through every game this week. Jake, how you making out today?
Well, a little bit worse than I was last week as my alma mater got handled by Ohio State. But overall, Joe, I got nothing to complain about. I'm enjoying life, and I'm excited to talk ball with you.
Yeah, Ohio State was due. More on them later. Let's start with the updated rankings. Of course, the big shakeup here is Texas Tech makes their way into the top four. Any big takeaways, any big complaints about the latest college football rankings?
I got a lot of complaints, man. It's a mess. This entire thing is a mess. I mean, where do we begin? You have the Notre Dame versus Miami head-to-head debate. That's an issue because the committee, you got to lay out clean guidelines ahead of time. They say head-to-head matters, and yet it doesn't matter and isn't reflected in the ratings. I don't know what they're going to do there. Then you have this whole situation of the auto bids. I think this is my biggest gripe with the committee, and I think this is where changes need to happen. If Duke were to beat Virginia, I don't think Duke makes the playoffs. So then all of a sudden it's the highest rated conference champions, not just that doesn't mean ACC gets an auto bid, the conference champ there. So then you're looking at potentially Tulane could get in, JMU could get in, North Texas could get in. Oh, but let's also talk about all of those teams' head coaches have accepted jobs somewhere else. So it's a complete and utter mess. Ole Miss somehow moved up in the rankings. I literally cannot make sense of it. Why don't we just go to a AI model, something like the BCS? Let's just let the 12 best teams play. I don't want a committee picking the 12 best because then it'll be an SEC fest. Let's just have a BCS type model, pick the 12 best teams, and let's go from there.
Yeah, still a lot of wrinkles to iron out there. I think a lot of us thought we had it solved by increasing to 12 teams. That is not the case, though. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see how that shakes out. Okay, so we got to discuss Lane Kiffin, LSU, Ole Miss, this mess. Now, I think most people are aligned here that it's complete garbage that, Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss before the season is even done. They got a big playoff game coming up. So I want to get your perspective as a former player, Ole Miss sitting at number 6 in the rankings. How do you think the players feel about this? What do you think their attitude is? What do you think their motivation is? Do you think they're going to come out with more of a chip on their shoulder? Or do you think they might just be completely screwed here?
Well, I think this is where these things are really complex, and the players should be pissed because if I'm sitting there, I'm saying, Lane, what do you mean you're leaving to go compete for national titles with LSU? We have a team ready to win a national title right here. What do you mean you can't get it done at Ole Miss and you need to go to LSU? That's where I'd be pissed. But I'd also say if that was Lane's dream job, I don't think that's Lane's job. I think, he'll leave from LSU to go to Bama in a few years. That's just Lane. But if that's the case, he has to do that because of the college football calendar. That is another thing that makes this entire thing a complete mess. Lane has to leave. And I don't blame Ole Miss from saying, Lane, if you're going to LSU, you're not staying to coach these guys. Get the hell out of here. Now, the good thing for Ole Miss is Charlie Weiss is going to stay on and call plays. He was the offensive coordinator, even though Lane was calling plays. That's a big bonus for the guys. I'm sure they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder. But here's one thing that really never gets discussed in these situations is when you're losing Lane and some of the other staff members that Lane's bringing with him, that's not just losing warm bodies. That's your guy that decides your practice schedule, practice reps. Those are scouting reps and game planning reps during the week. Like scouting and game planning is one of the biggest pluses of a postseason staff. Well, you just lost your best scouter and game planner in Lane Kiffin. Imagine if the Bears suddenly lost Ben Johnson. That's what it would be on top of all the other staff. So now everyone you got a guy in Charlie Weiss that's going to call plays. Everyone that's part of that offensive staff now has to work double time scouting and game planning for whatever playoff game they get. So sure, the players will have a chip on their shoulder. It's going to be an uphill battle here. You cannot honestly say that Ole Miss has the same chances to make a run as they did. Not even close.
Surely they have to fix this. I know it happens every season, but it's highlighted now more than ever. It doesn't happen in any other sport. Could you imagine if Sean McVay, for some reason, he wanted the New York Giants job and he just took it after week 18 of the NFL season? He said, "See you later, Rams. Take your number one overall seed in the NFC. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see you next year."
We would be with pitchforks wherever Roger Goodell lives. We'd say, fix this schedule. The problem is we're dealing with the NCAA. I was at signing day yesterday. Brian Hartline is at Ohio State, leaves for USF like the morning of signing day. All of a sudden, Ohio State's got the number one receiver in Chris Henry, who had he was their longest committed to Brian Hartline. All of a sudden, is he going to USC? Is he going to US? And all of a sudden, these kids who are saying, "Hey, I'm betting my future on you, coach." Oh, but coach, you're going to USF. And you give these kids a matter of hours to figure it out. The calendar is the fundamental issue here, Joe. It has to be fixed.
Very much broken. Okay, before we get into the big games of the weekend, I got to get your final thoughts on Michigan's regular season comes to an end, not the way that you wanted it to. So they finished 9-3 in the regular season. Do you consider that a success? What did you like? What did you not like about their season? And what are your expectations going into next season?
I mean, it was a success in the sense they did their jobs. Okay. I mean, yes, they're a young team. They were playing an 18-year-old freshman quarterback. They won 9 games against inferior opponents. They have one conference win over a team with a winning conference record, and that was Washington, who was extremely injured in that game. So you can put an asterisk on that. But they won, and that's never guaranteed. But then the 3 quality teams you played, Oklahoma got ran off the field, playoff team. Ohio State ran off the field, playoff team. USC ran off the field, not even a playoff team. That therein lies my issue, because it signifies to me that there is a gap here, and especially in that Ohio State game, because Michigan will be judged against Ohio State. I'll just be honest with you, Joe. I've covered Ohio State. I think Ohio State is closer to being the next Alabama, and Ryan Day is closer to being Nick Saban than Michigan is to consistently competing with Ohio State because of their systems in place. They made some changes. They got rid of the special teams coach. That was an issue. But across the board, there's a big gap between these two programs, and this is something that won't be fixed in one clean sweep. It needs to be systematic. And I'm not calling for anyone to get fired either. I'm just saying, top down, they need to say, we need to get better.
Indeed, yeah. Ohio State, an absolute wagon. Maybe a little bit of a tell there for your commentary for the big game this weekend. So let's get into it. There's a lot of big games, but let's start with the biggest in prime time. Indiana versus Ohio State, number 1 versus number 2. 2 of the top quarterbacks in the nation going head to head. A lot of great storylines here. So both undefeated. Who stays undefeated here, Jake?
Ohio State stays undefeated. I'll bury the lead here. I'm clearly high on Ohio State, and I don't want to disrespect Indiana. They're a good team. It could be Ohio State versus Georgia, Ohio State versus anybody, and I would say Ohio State. They're in a different class this year, and that's no disrespect to anyone. But then you start to peel back the layers a little bit of this matchup, and you think about Indiana when they have the ball. They were in a dogfight against Oregon, a dogfight against Iowa, a dogfight against Penn State. What's the common denominator? All 3 of those defenses have top 25 run defenses. So Indiana's offense was unable to run the ball, never eclipsed 3 yards per carry in any of those games. They're a very RPO balanced offense. So all of a sudden, Mendoza has to win on his arm consistently. He's a good quarterback. Can't do it against the best defenses. Ohio State, by far the best rushing defense that Indiana will face all year. I think it's going to be very tough sledding to run the ball. Mendoza's going to have to win with his arm. It's tough sledding to throw the ball against them. Now, the flip side, and why I really like Ohio State, Sayin, PFF does these awesome breakdowns. Sayin has a 94.8 coverage grade when facing zone. It is far and away the highest grade against zone coverage in college football. Indiana runs the highest rate of zone coverage. 90% of their defense is zone coverage. You're not just going to switch that up against the Buckeyes. I'm just telling you right now. Indiana's going to run zone. Sayin's going to pick them apart unless Indiana can get pressure on them. No one's gotten pressure on Sayin all year long. Indiana has the highest pressure rate in college football, the highest blitz rate in college football. But the issue is Ohio State has allowed the second fewest sacks on the season. So all that can be good for Indiana. I still don't think they even sniff Julian Sayin, and I think he just dices apart zone coverage, unfortunately for the Hoosiers. I think they're going to come out competitive. I just think over the course of 4 quarters, Ohio State wins.
Yeah, tough to make a case against Ohio State in this one. Okay, so your best bet of the week also comes from this game. You like the first half under.
I love the first half under, and this has been a safe bet for the Buckeyes all year. They run a slow tempo offense. They are in no rush to score points. They want to keep their defense fresh, and when their defense fresh, it's hard to score. So it'll be hard to score against them early, and Ohio State's going to milk the clock early. It's 23.5. I'm going to take the under of the first half points. I expect Indiana to also slow their offense down early because they don't want to give the Buckeyes the ball back. It's just this circular event that's fed to first half unders being a great pick for Ohio State. So take the first half under, and I like Ohio State with the points too, -3.5.
Let's go. Okay, let's go to the SEC now. Georgia favored by 2.5 against Alabama. Now, we all know the history. Alabama has dominated them, winning 10 of the last 11, including a 24-21 win at Georgia this season. Do you think Alabama's domination continues?
So I when I was researching this game, there was an awesome quote. Georgia is better than Alabama, except when they play Alabama. And I was like, that sums it up right there. So Kirby Smart, 1-7 against Bama. He's got a Bama problem. Bama, 4-0 in SEC championship games against Georgia. But the issue is Kirby Smart is 3-0 when it comes to in-season rematches, including 1-0 against Alabama. So Kirby Smart usually makes necessary adjustments in these games. Look, last matchup, Ty Simpson was lights out. He was 13-19 on third down. They were able to move the chains, keep the clock going. But in recent weeks, Ty Simpson has kind of taken a step back, and I believe he's injured. There's a lot of rumors that he's not 100% at least. Meanwhile, I think the big key in this game here, Joe, both teams are beat up. Both teams are beat up offensively, but Georgia lost their starting center in the game against Georgia Tech. His name is Drew Bobo. In the first half, their running back ran for just shy of 100 yards when he was healthy. Gets injured early in the second half. Didn't come anywhere near the rushing success or passing success. Losing a center is a vital piece of your offensive line, especially against that Bama defense, which you could make a case is the best defense in college football. To me, that leans towards picking Bama. But if I had to pick in this game because of the injuries, I think the safest bet is to pick the under in this game just because of how beat up both these offenses are.
Okay, next up, let's check out BYU taking on Texas Tech, who's favored by 12.5. Big number, but they've been stomping a lot of teams here this season. Both teams 11-1, and Texas Tech did destroy them 29-7, just back on November 8th. Any reason to expect a different result here, Jake?
That BYU's starting a freshman quarterback. Maybe he is better now. I mean, he's got to be better now that you'd think, freshman, you progress as the season goes on. But then you peel back the layers, and the one thing you don't like about a freshman, you need to be able to run the ball and you need to be able to protect him. That didn't happen in the first matchup. BYU's got a pretty solid offensive line, but they met their match against Texas Tech. So in the first matchup, they had 67 yards against the Texas Tech's defense. That was a season low. They also, the freshman quarterback was hit 5 times, 5 quarterback hits. That was a season high. And the reason why is PFF leads the country with a 93.6 PFF grade. All 4 of their starting D linemen are in the top 10 of PFF grades at their respective positions. David Bailey leads the nation with 70 pressures. Romello Heights, second in the country with a 93 PFF grade. I just, that alone says this is going to be a long day for this freshman quarterback. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff. It's basically a home game there at Jerry's World for Texas Tech. It's impossible for me to say I feel good about picking a freshman quarterback against such a ferocious defensive line. That was almost a shutout. That touchdown in the first matchup came late when Tech was in prevent defense. It should have been a shutout. I'd expect something similar.
Okay, let us wrap with a big picture NFL question. Let's talk a couple of Texas teams. Both NFL Texas teams absolutely surging at the moment. The Cowboys have won 3 straight games. Now you have to take them seriously considering those last 2 wins, outright wins over a 5-day span versus both teams that played in the Super Bowl last season. Meanwhile, the Houston Texans peaking at the right time here. They got C.J. Stroud back. Their defense is a top 3 unit in the NFL. They've won 4 or 5. Now, both teams have a tricky game This week, the Cowboys are in Detroit. That looks like a really good game on Thursday Night Football. Meanwhile, the Texans on Sunday night go to Kansas City, must-win game for the Chiefs. And then it gets a little bit easier to close out the regular season. So my question for you is, which of these teams do you trust more to keep rolling here during the stretch run of the regular season?
So that's a different question. Like Texans have the better playoff odds, and especially if the Texans win this weekend, like they could be in the I think the 7th position in a playoff spot in their conference. So, but the way you could approach this question is which do you prioritize more? Because that Texans defense is light out. Kansas City's a tough place to win. The Chiefs have been better at home this year, but my goodness, is that Texans defense ferocious? But so is the Cowboys. I mean. Jerry ended up looking like a genius with some of the trades he's made this season. That Cowboy defense, the sum is greater than the part of Micah Parsons. They're coming along. But man, how about the Cowboys offense with Dak Prescott, with George Pickens, with CeeDee Lamb, all those playmakers? If I had to pick, I lean more towards, especially late in the season, I want to prioritize a quarterback. I love the Texans defense. If the question is which do I expect will finish strong, I will predict a healthy and hot Dak Prescott throwing to George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and all those weapons will finish stronger than the Texans.
Yeah, it's all about peaking at the right time. The Philadelphia Eagles are not peaking at the right time here, but maybe the Dallas Cowboys are. I'd love to see them sneak in here, playing a dome in these playoff games, potentially. A lot of high-scoring games. Such a chaotic season here in the NFL. I hope it stays that way. Okay, Jake, we'll leave it at that for today. Great spot. Enjoy all the games. Best of luck with those bets, and we'll catch you again next week.
All right, man. Good to see you, Joe.
All right, joining us now to rip through all the big games this week in college football is our guy, Brad Powers. Brad, how you making out going into this big weekend?
Doing well, Joe. I can't believe the season's basically already over as far as the regular season. Just 9 games on the card this week.
Flew by. Absolutely. Okay, so if you missed Brad on Monday's appearance, he gave a Georgia -2.5 as a best bet. If you're interested in hearing why, go back to the Monday show and check out his analysis. So 2 best bets to give out now. And let's start with the biggest game of the weekend, primetime Saturday night, number 1 versus number 2, both teams undefeated. You like Ohio State to cover the spread, -4. And it's hard to disagree with that. So 14-1-1 against the spread since losing to Michigan last season. The only non-cover came as a 29-point favorite versus Purdue about a month ago. They ended up winning only by 24, so we'll give them a little bit of a pass there. But why do you like them to keep rolling here against Indiana on Saturday night?
Well, let's start with that streak, Joe. I mean, obviously they've won 16 games in a row dating back to the Michigan game last year, but you mentioned the ATS record. Well, anytime a team like that has a run against the spread, normally you're paying significant premiums. I don't think you are in a lot of cases with this Ohio State team. I don't think the market has fully grasped just how good they are. This is a team that it's really looked like they've been load managing, believe it or not, Joe. They run the slowest tempo of any team in the country. Their defense has faced the fewest plays of any team in the country this year. They're gearing up for this final stretch, not only in this game, but to make another run at the national championship. So I think they have an extra gear. We saw a little bit of it last week against their rival Michigan, but even that game, they focused on the run game in the second half once that game was fully in hand. In this 16-game winning streak, Joe, their closest win was by 7 points in the opener against Texas. And then this Indiana team, yes, they're better than last year's team. But, they entered last year's game against Ohio State 10-0 and got embarrassed. Now, again, I think they're better and more equipped to at least keep this one somewhat closer. But I think Ohio State might have a higher ceiling than last year's team. So when you add it all together, this is a Buckeye team that's on their way to another national championship. No, yeah, but they're young. They're going to return most of the team next season. I'm laying the 4 here.
Hell yeah. Okay. Another best bet to add. This one isn't on a game, though. It's to make or to not make the playoff. And the team that you are zeroed in on is Notre Dame. What are you thinking here?
I'm going to say no, believe it or not. 3-1 or greater, shop around. There's a few books that even have higher than 3-1 right now. So what's my thought process there? Well, I think there's a couple of different ways that Notre Dame doesn't make it, even though they've been firmly in all this time. They did drop a slot this past week, a very important spot because the cut line is 10 this year with a G5 bid and an ACC team, not ranked in the top 10 automatic qualifiers. So if BYU, a team ranked right below them playing this week, wins and pulls a big upset in the Big 12 championship game, that would knock out Notre Dame. But let's say BYU loses. Let's say they get handled pretty easily, which I think is going to be the case. Well, if BYU drops a couple spots, who is that next team in line that could possibly pass up Notre Dame? Oh, yeah, Miami's their name. And a Miami team that beat Notre Dame. And I know they said, oh, head to head, we're not thinking about head to head because there was like 3 or 4 teams in between Notre Dame and Miami. I think in that final selection Sunday, if it's Notre Dame and Miami side by side, 10 and 11, head to head will eventually come into play. So I bet this significantly. I like no 3-1 or greater.
Yeah, you absolutely have to consider that head to head if that's what it comes down to. Okay, let's start ripping through these games. Let's start with the Friday games right into Saturday. And let's start with Troy James Madison, a 23.5 point spread favoring James Madison. Total 47.5. So many examples of James Madison absolutely laying the smackdown this season. 8 wins of 28 or more. Do you think that pattern continues in this game?
I can't get there as far as my power rating, even though I have JMU, believe it or not, the top ranked group of 5 team, not any of the 2 teams from the American. So if I had a vote, I'd be putting James Madison in the playoff. Speaking of that, they kind of have an outside shot of getting the playoffs. All they need to do is have a big time impressive win here and have Duke upset Virginia. And it's very likely that JMU can be the second group of 5 team making the college football playoffs this year. So I'm going to attack this though. While my power ratings lean Troy, my power ratings lean over. Let's combine the 2 here. I'm going to go Troy team total over 10.5. Troy's offense struggled. They're not great, but they have passed this in 9 of their 12 games this year. JMU's defense is great, but they still are allowing 16 points per game on average this year. And if JMU's going for style points, that'll come on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to take Troy's team total over 10.5, or a very low number.
Okay, next up, let's go to Kennesaw State versus Jacksonville State. I believe this is a game we discussed a couple of weeks ago. Jacksonville State is a 2.5 point dog, total on the highish end, 59.5. So they played back on November 15th. Jacksonville State won 35-26. That was at home. Do you expect a similar result in this game?
First off, awesome memory, Joe. That was a best bet. You probably remember it because it's like one of the few best bets I've won. So, yeah, Jacksonville State did win outright as a best bet. It wasn't impressive, though. In fact, Kennesaw State, I could make a case, could have won that game, specifically on their offensive side of the ball, where they racked up nearly 600 yards, but only 26 points. So why are we going Kennesaw team total over 30.5 here? Well, there's just some inefficiencies in that game. They had 5 turnovers in that game. So moving the football, I don't think it's going to be a problem against this Jacksonville State defense. Kennesaw, since that game, has scored 42 and 48. So even in a championship game type setting, let's go Kennesaw team total over 30.5 here.
Okay, next up, we have North Texas favored by 2.5 against Tulane. Total on the high end, absolutely 67.5. So North Texas, a great bet this season, 10-2 against the spread. They've covered in 6 straight. They've gone over in 3 straight, with all 3 of those games crossing 75 combined points. Do you think any of these patterns continue into this matchup?
I don't, Joe. So I know North Texas, people are going to say, how are you betting under 67 in this game when you have North Texas, the highest scoring team in all of college football? Variety of reasons. Number one, this is a playoff game. The winner is going to the college football playoffs. So you could argue this is the biggest game in school history for both. So with added pressure becomes, added motivation, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. It's not like most of these games down the stretch where Tulane and North Texas have been 2, 3, 4 touchdown favorites and they've been rolling up teams. I think you'll get maximum intensity on every single possession. And I also think we got distractions. Both head coaches took jobs. They're going to coach in this game and remain with their teams throughout the playoffs. But signing day was yesterday. I don't know what type of offensive and defensive game plans that we'll have. If it'll be very creative. Let's put it that way, with a lot of distractions for both staffs. So let's go under 67 here.
Okay, next up, UNLV, Boise State. Boise State favored by 4.5, total 58.5. So Boise State has absolutely owned them. They've beaten them in 9 straight games, including a 56-31 smackdown back in October. What do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, I like Boise here minus 4.5. The mispricing, you mentioned the recent series history. This is the 4th time these 2 teams have played now in the last 2 years. Boise's won and covered each of the last 3. You mentioned the earlier game where they were a 13-point favorite about 6 weeks ago at home. won and covered that game. So why are we only laying 4.5 here? Well, Boise's quarterback got hurt. They lost a couple of games. And UNLV's playing their best ball this season, but I don't know if that justifies that big of a swing in a point spread in just 6 weeks. And oh, yeah, by the way, Boise's quarterback is cleared to play here. So I don't think that's fully priced in the market yet. So let's go ahead and lay the 4.5 with Boise. And oh, yeah, by the way, one I did get right. I told you Monday, Boise was plus 420 to win the conference. I said that was ridiculous. And here they are favored to win the conference a week later.
Hell yeah, let's go. Okay, let's go to BYU, Texas Tech. Texas Tech favored by 12.5, total 49.5. Texas Tech beat the crap out of them back in November. They won by 22. Average scoring margin of plus 29.4 for Texas Tech. That's second to just Indiana this season. So they're destroying everybody. Do you think they'll destroy BYU on Saturday?
I do lean that way, Joe. They've won all 11 of their wins have come by 22 points or more. That 22-point win was against this BYU team, their closest win of the season. I'm going to attack it again, derivative market. I'm going to go over where I think there's a little bit mispricing here. Texas Tech team total over 30.5. Wait, how can you play over 30.5? They only scored 29 in the first meeting. They settled for 5 field goals, and they had a less than 100% quarterback. Since that game, they've had a bye week. They've had multiple blowouts. Quarterback is healthy for them, or at least healthier than what he was in the first matchup. I think that's the way to attack this game. Texas Tech team total over 30.5.
Okay, next up, Miami, Ohio, taking on Western Michigan, who's favored by 2.5, total on the low end of 43.5. A 26-17 result for Miami, Ohio during the regular season. You think Western Michigan can bounce back in this one?
I think Western Michigan deserves to be the favorite, but here we go again. Going to sound like a broken record. Look, we're down to 9 games. I got to scrape and find some value here. I'm going to go to the derivative team total market again. I'm going to play it over again. Hear me out, though. I know even with the low total here, I'm going to go Miami, Ohio team total over 20.5. They are off their back-to-back best performances on the offensive side of the ball of the season. So what's changed for them? Well, I mean, they haven't played the toughest competition, but there has been a change at quarterback. This is a team that dealt with their starting quarterback a month ago, quitting the team to focus on the NFL. The regular backup was, terrible. Couldn't protect the football. So in the last 2 games, they went to a redshirt freshman. They're trying to preserve his red shirt for the year. But mainly for him is he's taking care of the football. 0 interceptions last 2 weeks. Again, 37 and 45 points for Miami. That's great for them. Best performances of the season. Let's go ahead and take advantage of that fundamental change on their offense over 20.5 Miami, Ohio.
Okay, let us wrap with Duke versus Virginia. Virginia favored by 4, total 57.5. So Duke is 1-9 straight up and against the spread in their last 10 games versus Virginia, who's absolutely owned them, including back in November when they beat them by 17 points. Do you think Duke can be competitive with them this time around?
I have my doubts because 17 sounds like a lot. I'm telling you, it could have been worse because Virginia outgained them by nearly 300 yards.
Woo!
That usually indicates 4 touchdown type of win. And keep in mind, that was on the road for Virginia. Now we got a neutral site here. Virginia wins. They're in the playoffs. Duke needs some help if they were to win. What also needs some help is the ACC for having Duke, a 7-5 team in this conference championship game. Miami should be playing in this. It's ridiculous. But I'm going to lay the 3.5 for Virginia. It seems a little light, even with my power ratings here. Even though they were an underdog in that first game, they're playing by far their best ball this season. They had a bye, and then they beat up their rival, Virginia Tech. I can't say the same for Duke. Yeah, they won last week. Yeah, they covered last week. They got outgained by 100 yards against Wake Forest. They were +4 in turnovers, so misleading final here. Let's take advantage of it.
Okay, there you have it. We'll leave it at that for today, Brad. I cannot wait for these games this weekend. Enjoy all the action. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll catch you again on Monday.
Thanks for having me, Joe.